Why is it important to learn about MFSB albums? Because these are the people who put together the instrumentation for all the great hits by Harold Melvin and the Blue Notes and Teddy Pendergrass, the OJs, 3 Degrees, you name it, they were on. If they were on Philly International, chances are, and even outside Philly International in some respects, MFSB played on those. What's going on, y'all? Welcome to a brand new edition, a brand new Monday, a brand new week on the Groove Line with your boy Chris Stevens. Hopefully, you had a wonderful 4th of July weekend. If you hear any noise in the background, forgive me. It has been hot as hell. My air conditioning doesn't work very well, so I'm trying to get it to work. So if you hear any whirring in the background, that's what that is. I do apologize. But yes, today we are starting a new series. It is called MFSB Monday. Now, if you guys are new to the channel, this is a really Philly soul centric sort of vibe over here because I'm from the area. And I did an episode last year about MFSB splitting apart, but I didn't do a full recap and review of each MFSB album. Now, why is it important to learn about MFSB albums? Because these are the people who put together the instrumentation for all the great hits by Harold Melvin and the Blue Notes and Teddy Pendergrass, the OJs, 3 Degrees, you name it, they were on. If they were on Philly International, chances are, and even outside Philly International in some respects, MFSB played on those joints. I mean, don't forget the Delphonics, the Stylistics, Blue Magic, all of these folks. So it's important that we learn about the great musicians behind Mother, Father, Sister, Brother, but that's the PG rated version. The official MFSB version among the studio musicians themselves was Mother effing Son of a B. That's what they used to say when somebody really was laying down the music. So that's how MFSB got their name, if you didn't know. But today, we're going to talk about their debut album, which debuted in the first half of 1973. Have not been able to find an official release date for it yet, but I trust it is the first half because they put out 2 albums in 1973. And this was the first one, self-titled, just simply MFSB. And if you look, I mean, remember when album covers used to have character? They were either funny pictures of artists or deep pictures of artists posing, but now, I mean, and then you had drawings like this. Like this is a, if you can't see it, I'll describe it for you. It is an open casket with a needle laying in the casket, surrounded by a bunch of poincianas. We'll talk more about that in a minute, and in a graveyard. So one of the more interesting album covers to come out of the early 70s or the 70s period is the MFSB self-titled cover. But that being said, this was the first official MFSB project. This is when Kenny Gamble and Leon Huff started to kind of sort of realize that, hey, we need to sort of satiate these dudes and make sure that they are properly, credited, even though we still aren't giving them the money that they, if you have not read A House on Fire, The Rise and Fall of Philadelphia Soul by John A. Jackson, it all explains it there. I've talked about that. But yes, so MFSB, they released their debut album in the first half of 1973, and it's pretty much a lot of covers. For one, it starts off with a cover of Freddie's Dead by Curtis Mayfield, which was really hot at the time. Hey, hey. And that was really more, their cover version is more so just them flexing on the musicianship. I mean, we all know that Curtis Mayfield was a dynamite musician, not taking anything away from him, but it was a Philly soul version of, Freddie's Dead. Of course, about the fateful tale of Freddie from Superfly who didn't make it out of the game as it was. And then, of course, it goes into a Leon Huff keyboard masterclass called the Family Affair cover. Of course, Family Affair by Sly and the Family Stone was another hot record around the time they recorded this, because most of this album was recorded in 1972. So you get a song like Family Affair and Freddie's Dead, 2 very popular songs. I mean, that's the one thing I loved about music back in the day, was that people were not afraid to cover other people's music. I'll talk more about that when we do more jazz fusion albums and different things like that. But you have that. You have Leon. I mean, Leon Huff absolutely goes to work on the keys on this. I mean, his piano work is just doom, 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 playing the melody, and just, I don't think there's anything else literally that stands out about Family Affair, the MFSB version, but then Leon Huff's keyboard work, because Leon Huff was a master on them keys, man. A lot of the good stuff that you hear on those Philly International, records, those early ones, especially with the pianos and the keys, that's all Leon himself. And then you have the Tom Bell instrumental, which was also co-written by Kenny Gamble and Roland Chambers. Something for Nothing. It's about 3 minutes long. It's very Tom Bellish. You can tell by the drums because Tom Bell did not like a lot of drum play on his records, and nothing really, you know, boom, 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 boom. Like it's just stay in the pocket where I write this, and that goes for you musicians as well. On the strings, on the pianos, on the horns, don't deviate from my charts. Tom Bell was notoriously strict about the music that he wrote being recorded and played the way that he wrote it. And you had to respect it because Tom Bell, God rest his soul, was a genius. But yes, Something for Nothing. My generation knows it more as What More Can I Say by Jay-Z. Because I remember when that came out in college. And then, finding out that that was a Philly soul sample just as I was starting to get into my music discovery bag. And of course, thanks to the internet, I was able to go download that song, the original Something for Nothing, and just, wow, man. Tom Bell's ear for orchestration was just undeniable. And it's evident on Something for Nothing, even if it's only about 3 minutes long, just the strings. At the end, when the key change happens, spectacular stuff. Spectacular stuff. And then, of course, there is a instrumental version of Backstabbers. Apparently, this was one of the versions of Backstabbers that stayed on the cutting room floor after the OJs had already gone through a few different versions of it. The one we hear, of course, was either the first or second take, but there were a few other takes involved. And this is one of those takes where there's no lyrics being sung or anything. It's just straight musicians, playing, what they do. They smile in your face. On time, will take your place. The Backstabbers. They just playing that melody. And then, of course, Laying Low, featuring the saxophone stylings of the late, great Zach Zachary. That is the opening 3 minutes of Teddy Pendergrass's monologue on Harold Melvin and the Blue Notes, Be For Real. And that is one of the great monologues in music history. That first Harold Melvin and the Blue Notes album on Philly International had a couple of great spoken word parts. Of course, Harold Melvin, running down the game on his girl, trying to get her back at the end of I Miss You. But Teddy talking to that woman on Be For Real is just absolutely hilarious. See, that's your problem. You always opening your mouth saying the wrong thing at the right time. You was crying on my shoulders about, Papa, why? Why don't nobody want to be my friend? And I didn't tell you because I thought you had sense enough to know better. And then it goes into Be For Real, Be For Real, Be For Real, girl. But that first part of Teddy just, talking to this woman, they rerouted it for the MFSB self-titled debut, and it's called Laying Low because it's really a low-key sort of instrumental. I mean, you have to have something low-key if you're telling your girl that you need to stop talking dirty about people when we in these clubs because they looking at us funny and we got the money that they trying to get and they might rob us. So you might need to hush your mouth. That's basically what Teddy was saying on Be For Real. It closes out with an old standard of a song called Poinciana, which was an orchestral record written back and during the Great Depression. And it's just Philly International. It's just Philly soul. It's the strings. It's the horns. It's the sweetness of everything that Philly International Records and the sound of Philadelphia would become as the 70s progressed. So this album, it wasn't like a blockbuster. The next one would be a blockbuster, and we'll save that for another MFSB Monday. But it did hit top 20 on the R&B chart, so it was a hit by, regular standards, but it just wasn't, as memorable as the albums that would follow it, the album that will follow it. We'll talk more about Love Is The Message another time. But if you have not heard anything from MFSB, the self-titled, I highly recommend you check it out. Like I said, Something for Nothing. You can always listen to that and just put yourself in that Jay-Z frame of mind for a minute if you want to. If you want to hear what a Philly soul version of Family Affair by Sly and the Family Stone sounds like, that's a good place to start. Same for the Freddie's Dead cover. And like I said, just them, flexing their musicianship on the Backstabbers instrumental and just the low keyness of Laying Low, and then Poinciana, them turning the old orchestral record into a Philadelphia soul masterpiece. It's great. It's great. And this wouldn't assuage the problems that would eventually, corrupt and handcuff Philly International as the 70s progressed. But it was a way to kind of sort of stem the tide a little bit. So the first MFSB album is Before All the Hell Broke Loose. And then we've talked about that before. I'll put a link to the episode where I discussed that in the description below. But yes, that is going to do it for this first edition of MFSB Monday. We have 6 more MFSB Mondays to go because they put out 6 albums as a collective. And as you're going to find out, as we talk more about these albums, the sound is going to change, the personnel is going to change, the vibe is going to change. So hopefully you guys are along for the ride. I mean, I know you are. I mean, there are so many of you. But yes, that's going to do it for this edition of On the Groove Line. Greatly appreciate you wonderful people for tuning in as always. Contact information will be in the description below. Don't forget to subscribe, tap that notification bell so you're notified of all the new videos that drop on this channel. And don't forget to like and comment on these videos. As you know by now, your boy talks back in the comments. So thank you guys for riding with me on the Groove Line. And until the next time we ride, let's have a good week, y'all. May you find the groove, or may the groove find you.